Okay, next, I would like to introduce to you Mr. Bùi Đức Tiến from Ho Chi Minh City University of Education, Vietnam. Something about Mr. Tiến is very interesting to me is that he's a very active member of the executive board of the Ho Chi Minh City Digital Association. And it's very nice to see him today as a presenter. Mr. Tiến has an MA in Applied Linguistics. He has been working for nearly 3 years as a lecturer at the Department of English, Ho Chi Minh City University of Education, where he deals with college level majors in English and English language teaching, language skills, as well as linguistics. He holds special insights into text-based teaching and learning, and is keen on developing e-materials for self-study, particularly online educational videos. He also has experience in syllabus design and program development. I hope you will enjoy the session today with our presenter, Mr. Tiến.
Alright, so good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great chance for me to be here. I actually graduated from Ho Chi Minh University with a program that took place in City of Richmond. And it's just great to be back after 3 years. Now, it's a wonderful feeling. From the morning until now, I understand that you have been listening to a lot of different presentations on a lot of different topics, ranging from reading to peer interaction to everything. Now we're going to go to a quite challenging one, writing. The presentation today is going to be about writing, but before I'm going to start with this, I'd like you to take a look at this very little piece of writing that my students actually wrote. For about 10 seconds, what will you say about it? So what do you think? It's a good one? Bad one? Terrible? Language is good? Not really. Does it make sense from the beginning to the end? There's some complication in it, but generally it's understandable. Right, so actually when it comes to writing, there are so many things that we need to take into account. For example, you write an essay. How am I going to teach my student to write a thesis statement? Why is this not a good topic sentence? They ask you all the time, questions like that. And how am I supposed to write my supporting sentences in an effective way? So those things. Now, those are the details when we go to each type of writing. Today, I'm going to talk to you about something very different. Alright, I'm going to call them the clues. The title is actually Clues to Smoother Writing. So, the first clue is actually different. And seriously, this is not even my own idea. I come here humble, without research of my own. I'm actually sharing my experience that I learned from the book by Brandon and Brandon. It's called Paragraphs and Essays. Alright, so if you're interested, you may want to find this book and learn more about what I'm going to talk about today. So, writing is such a daunting task, isn't it? Do you teach writing? Raise your hand. Do you enjoy teaching writing? Keep your hands up. Okay, so I still have some of my companions here. Thank you very much. Well, most of my friends actually, they fear teaching writing. And most of my students actually, when we come to a writing class, they start to freak out for some reason. And so, now, understanding that it is not a really very easy just wall task, we're going to try to find a way to make it easier. And of course there's so many things to talk about. So today, I'm going to propose to you one notion only, the clues. We're trying to decode the clues first. And after that, let's see the clues in action. I'm going to let you see one or two of my students' papers, and we'll try to find out what they got wrong in their clues. So, let's say clues. What's the clues are about? So this is an acronym. It stands for cohesion. What do you think is L? And which unity, emphasis, support, and sentences. Now these are the clues, and they're going to make a good clues to smooth the paragraphs in writing. Now we're going to go into detail about each of them. First, coherence. What is coherence anyway? Now coherence basically is the connection between ideas. Right? That's the basic understanding of coherence. However, when we try to break things down, what is really meant by coherence? Then we're going to need to think about it. So coherence can be broken down into first the pattern. What's the general pattern of the whole paragraph? And then what are the connected phrases that we can use to combine the ideas together? And then we're going to think about the repetition of key terms for emphatic purposes. We're going to also think about the use of pronouns. Now that is really important, simple but important. And finally, we need to maintain a consistent point of view. Now I'm going to detail into each of the components of coherence by themselves. So first, let's say patterns. Patterns basically can be divided into chronological, spatial, and emphatic. So for example, you teach your students to write a story, a narration, right? Telling a story what happened to them. Something funny happened to you on Friday, something like that. So maybe they are going to take a chronological order. That makes better sense. So you don't say, alright, a funny thing happened to me on Friday. First, blah blah blah. Second, blah blah blah. Third, blah blah blah. Doesn't sound quite right. Now a chronological order would require certain transitions like first what happened, after that immediately, or all of a sudden. Alright, something like that. And then we do have a spatial order, especially important when we are describing place. So like if we're going to describe this room, we're going to say that in the middle there is something, and then to the right there is something, to the left there is something, opposite the wall there is something like that. The order is really important. It's structuring the whole writing. And then we have emphatic order. This is what we often come across, for example, in an explanatory paragraph. We try to explain why people study English. So the first reason, the second reason, the last reason, something like that. Right, these are now the general patterns of any piece of writing that we might need to take into account. With this pattern, we are going to need transitional terms or connected phrases, whatever the names you call them, in order to connect the ideas together. Right, these are simple, but they are important in order to help the readers follow you very easily without much effort. So phrases like first, second, last, furthermore, moreover, or on the other hand, besides. Right, we all know all of these, and these contribute to the coherence of a piece of writing. Next, pronouns is also important. Pronouns, what I find in many of my students' writing is the misuse of pronouns. And sometimes they don't even want to use pronouns. They are going to repeat the nouns themselves. We understand a pronoun will stand for a noun that precedes it, don't they? So for example, I have this little sentence. I tried my tickets for the concert, but tickets they were all sold. Some of my students, actually, I took this from one of my students, they wrote, and they used tickets again. I tried to find tickets, but tickets were all sold. They did not use they to replace the noun tickets. So that leads us to the importance of using pronouns in our writing, and that also leads to the idea of coherence. I think part of the problem is with a Vietnamese sentence of pronouns. A Vietnamese sentence is going to be like tôi có mua vé nhưng vé bán hết rồi. That sounds more natural than tôi có mua vé nhưng chúng bán hết rồi. Something like that. Now, in my understanding of the Vietnamese language and according to what my students often say, that maybe in Vietnamese we try not to use a pronoun to replace the noun, and that may have a negative transfer onto English. So, to wrap things up, pronouns are so important in order to keep the text coherent. Maintaining a point of view is also important. Now, what I find in some of my students' writing is that in the introduction they say, okay, learning English is good for you. And then, people everywhere learning English because of many reasons. You, people. Finally, they say, Personally, I believe that I learn English because blah blah blah. Alright? So there is not a consistent point of view, sometimes in their writing. Then most of the time for narrative writing, we're going to stick with I, telling a story of your own, but not always. For instructional materials, maybe you should be more preferable. We're going to say like, okay, you come to the conference. First, you come to the conference. Second, you enter the international hall. Third, you listen very attentively to my presentation. Fourth, you go home happily. Something like that. For the instructional materials, you should be preferred. And finally, objective writing could be used in an essay normally, academic essay. The use of third person, he, she, or they should be more preferable in maintaining a consistent point of view. And it is necessary to get our students to remember that once they have chosen a pronoun, try to stick to that. We don't use I, it, and then you, and then he, she, it, blah, blah, blah. That's not going to work. Coherence, C. Now we come to the next letter, which is L, language. Language is important, of course. We're writing, so we're going to need to make good use of the language. And language certainly includes, it can include usage and tone and diction. Well, these three ideas are kind of intertwined and maybe overlapping sometimes. So I'm going to give very brief in explanations of them. Example. I'm going to say, right, mates, why don't we just kick off the situation so we can get out early? Doesn't sound quite right. If I say this to you, I don't think it's going to sound quite right within this context. So there's something wrong with the language used here. And firstly, when we think about language, we think about appropriateness. Similarly, the choice of the language for an informal letter will be different from that for a formal letter. You don't say, hey, Mr. Davidson, I want to get a job at your company. No, we don't say that in a formal letter. We don't write a cover letter that way. Language choice is important. Also, for a narrative, for a story, we're going to use language that is different from an essay. Alright? And of course, for essays, we use language that's different from a letter. We don't write a love letter this way. Okay, honey, I love you. First, you are. Second, you are. Third, you are. Lastly, you're going to make a good wife. Something like that. So language choice is important. Usage is also concerned with the tone. The tone of anything that you write can be objective, humorous, angry, sarcastic, or overbearing, depending on the word choice. And that leads us to the last component of language, which is diction. Now, diction basically means choice of words. So in which context we're going to choose which word? Informal context, informal vocabulary. Formal context, formal vocabulary. Then, again, language, usage, tone, and diction. And basically, they can be intertwined, as I mentioned. And they can be overlapping sometimes. The point is to think about appropriacy. That's it. C, L. The next one is going to be U, unity. What is unity anyway? As you can see on the picture right there, right, we have a little train, and it seems to have gone off track. So a text may be coherent, but it is not. It does not have unity. Coherence means ideas are very well connected, but unity means you stay on the same topic, right? You don't go off the topic. Some of my students, they go on the wrong topic. They have a good thesis statement, but then in the development of the ideas, they just go off the track, right? Even though they have good connected phrases, good pronoun, and very consistent point of view. So these are the two very different notions that we may need to take into account. Emphasis is also important. What do you see in the picture? Looks like a flag. Not what I intended to. I intended to make a white background and then there's a little red mark. It doesn't look very red on the screen. So the point is emphasizing something that stands out amongst a background. Whenever we write, we need to emphasize. And emphasis means to focus on the main ideas by stressing what is important. Of course, for example, in an essay, there are main ideas, so we need to stress the main ideas. What are we going to emphasize then? Perhaps in an application letter, you might want to stress the purpose of your writing. You might want to stress your qualities in order to impress the reader. And for a cause and effect essay, you may want to stress the cause and the effect. That's it. We have the main ideas, and in order to stress them, we're gonna have to lay emphasis on that. Now, when we come to emphasis, there's one more notion: repetition. Now, repetition is a two-bladed knife. For key notions, there should be repetition. But then, we need to differentiate between repetition of key ideas and a clumsy repetition of words. Now take a look at this very short example. She looked at him and frowned. He returned the look and then looked away at a stranger looking for his lost keys. Now in this literal sentence, we have a few words, look. Actually, they are repeated. And this is a bad repetition of words, actually. It doesn't actually emphasize anything. It's a bad repetition of words. So, in order to differentiate between emphasis and keywords, we're going to think about choice of different words like in this example, right? And we're going to think about repetition of keywords in terms of repetition of key terms, rather than repeating the vocabulary themselves. Now, I'm going to move on next support. You know, said my father? He's quite famous, right? And I love this little statement of him that when he delivered a speech to Harvard graduates, he said, "In a battle over science versus the religion, science offers credible evidence for all the serious claims it makes." The church says, "Oh, it's right here in this book." Now, the point is, I love this quotation because it points to the fact that we need support. Supporting ideas, supporting sentences for every main ideas that we have. Now that is also important in writing. And finally, the last S refers to sentences. And of course, the types of sentences you already know, and we're trying to get our students to avoid fragment and run on, something like that. Right? Now, to recap, we'll be decoding the clues: coherence, language, unity, emphasis, support, and sentences. Now these are the components that make up the clues, and hopefully this is like a revision of all of the knowledge that we've already known. So with a clear mind and a more systematic way of looking at these components, hopefully we're going to help our students write better. Now I want you to see the clues in action. Actually, I want to go back to the first piece of writing that my student wrote. So let's go back to this one. This is a better example. We have been talking about the clues. I want you to take a look back again at this little passage. Find out what's wrong in terms of the clues. 1 minute. Alright, so what do you think? Let's say this is a little paragraph. The topic sentence is, today English is very important to anybody. So this is the topic sentence, the key idea. What do you think about coherence? Not good? Good? Not really, because well, there might be a lack of connected phrases, don't you think? Some of the ideas, like the second idea about the ASEAN and working with foreigners, not very well connected, I think so. What do you think about the language? Did he use good word choice? Well, there's actually some spelling mistakes as well. And wrong punctuations. Something like that. CL and unity. He remains on track? Yes, I hope so. I think so. He remains on track. Emphasis? Is there enough emphasis on the importance of English? Well, there may be in certain terms. Right. What else we have? CLE and then support. There is enough support. in terms of supporting ideas. Well, I do think that he has a lot of ideas. They're just not very well connected. So there is support, but coherence is not very well adhered to. Sentences, different types of sentences. Well, I can see simple sentences, right? And maybe no complex one. Well, okay. And finally, there are some mistakes in terms of fragments. That's it. So I think that's going to wrap up my presentation for now on the clues. I want to thank you very much for your joining me with this presentation now.
Thank you very much. Very informative, Mr. Kim. Yeah, we have some minutes for Q&A. Would you please raise the question if you have?
For the very useful and practical presentation. However, I wonder how can you help the student to improve writing when I mean that how can you help the student to recognize their mistake when you using the clues? Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. This is such a practical question, isn't it? In application to ELT. Say, writing is a very long process, even for us to learn. And so whenever something is complex, I believe that it's good to break things down into smaller parts. So I'm actually integrating the clues into the current training at my department. And what I do is during the 15 weeks of training, I'm going to spend 2 weeks on coherence, 2 on language, 2 on unity, 2 on emphasis, 2 on support, and 2 on sentences. I try to give examples for each of the components of the clues. When we focus on coherence, just talk about coherence. Forget everything else. Right. It will be very hard in terms of material selection, but that is going to bring very good benefits. That's my answer. I hope that satisfies you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bin, for a very exciting presentation about writing teaching. And I'm very happy to share some of my ideas about this skill because I myself spend a lot of time really teaching academic writing. And I do agree with you about all the things that you have shown to us. However, the most important thing that I really find interested in about presentation is about the emphasis, right? And when you try to give some tip to make the writing impressive to the reader, it is repetition, okay? And I want to add some of my tip so that author can make use of this, right? It is the contrast. Maybe you have read a lot about the contrast. We should give the contrast idea in order to give the emphasis on the idea following. For example, when you write about the topic of cat, you may give the general idea about cat, about dog, and then you say something and leave another topic as cat, right? And another tip is to create the tone in the writing. It may be understandable in the writing, and it may not in another context, but it is very impressive, and it makes the writing, interesting, right? For example, I know that the name is Tian, but from now on, I can call you Mr. CLUESS, right? Mr. CLUESS, Mr. CLUESS, right? Because he talked about clues, and I'm very impressed by the title, the clue, and I call you Mr. Clue. Or when we write about agricultural disaster, we may not use disaster, we may create another word ourselves. For example, agricultural Chernobyl. Agricultural Chernobyl. Right? This way, you may have only one term in the writing, but the audience, right, the reader may find it very exciting. Okay, and after my idea, I have a question for you. How often do you make use of sample writing in the class?
Sample writing.
Sample writing.
Well, very often actually, especially near the start of any piece of knowledge. For example, when yesterday I had to teach a class how to write an introduction to an essay. So I had to use some sample essay for them to take a look at. Full sample essay and then sample introduction.
Okay. What do you do with the sample writing?
I'm gonna have
Just
them.
read.
No,
Just
I'm gonna have them
ask them
to
to
take a look. So for example, this is what I did yesterday with my essay class, right? They had to learn to understand the essay and how to write the introduction. So I gave them a sample, 3 essays about the same topic. I asked them to work in groups in order to talk amongst themselves. Find out the structure of the essay. How many parts are there? How many paragraphs are there? And what's the function of each of the parts of the essay? And to the introduction as well, comparing the introduction between the 3 sample essays that I gave them. How are they the same and how are they different? Something like that.
Okay. Do you often ask them to find out what is the most interesting thing of each writing, and then they can imitate
The most interesting thing of each.
writing, each sample writing?
Well, for general use of the sample writing in my class, well, that is a very small part, right? I asked them that question, yes, but it's like a little fun question to think about. I only try to give them the sample writing in order to get them to understand the structure of the essay and what is the most important part in the introduction, for example, or the most important part in the body paragraph.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much for the answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, thank you too.
Maybe you too, you have his email, the proceedings, you can, you too can share more ideas later. Okay.
Thank you very much.
So, this is the end of our session. Thank you very much for coming. I would like to invite Dr. Hong to come here and present